Well, as we speak about criticisms Canada is hearing from our American neighbors, another issue that has been raised has to do with Canada's defense priorities. Not only how much Canada spends on defense, but how prepared Canada is to protect the Arctic for the continent and our NATO allies. They are all issues I discussed with Canada's Chief of Defense Staff General Jennie Carignan, who I caught up with last weekend at the Halifax International Security Forum. General, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Now, when you were originally appointed Chief of Defense Staff, and that was just this past summer, you were talking about how Canadian forces have about a 5-year run-up. And I'm wondering if you need to revisit that timeline, because as we see the delegates come together here from many different countries, and we see the situation in Ukraine, the fact that Russia, despite the West aiding Ukraine, continues to attack the country. Do you need to revisit that timeline as to how you can ramp up Canadian forces?
So the timeline is really based on our efforts to go back to our full complement of personnel within the forces. So that's the whole effort behind the recruiting and the onboarding of new personnel. So we want to accomplish that within the next 5 years. But within that 5 year as well, we are going to be integrating new capabilities that are absolutely required for the present, to counter the present threat and for the future one. And of course, we are also working a longer term, the 5 to 10 year horizon, to onboard more capabilities. And this timeline is determined on the assessment of the threat, but also in collaboration with our allies as to making sure that we address the gaps that we have within the alliance.
You talk about ramping up the defense staff. You know, except that when you look at the numbers, you see thousands of people applying, but not everybody actually gets to be trained. What are you actually looking for that only a fraction who step forward actually become a part of Canadian forces?
So it is really, it's a mix, like recruiting is a very complex process because we are dealing with human beings. So within that, some people decide within the process that it's not for them. Sometimes we are not fast enough to exploit the opportunity of having this person in. It's our processes. But also it's the choice of trades. We have 107 different trades within the military, but our new personnel coming in have a broad range of choices. So again, and then some trades require more people and others are already full. So it's the management of our needs as well that is all brought together. But what we are doing currently is streamlining our process. So this fall, and we have already changed many aspects of our processes, our standards, our security screenings. So this is all getting streamlined, and then with modernized medical standards starting in January. So again, recruiting in 2024 are not, we need to change in accordance with today's Canadians.
Need to change. How much of that also is ramping up Canadian Forces' capacity to train new recruits? Do you have the infrastructure to actually train as quickly as you need to get numbers back up?
We do, and you're absolutely right. We need to ensure that our capacity to train all these new recruits coming in is set and ready for that. So the team is currently working at making sure that with the numbers coming in and the trades that are going to be needing training, that the process is streamlined throughout. So you can appreciate that with many different trades, the path to qualification is not the same for everybody. So a mechanic is not the same as an infantry person or as a pilot. So again, it's addressing that with the whole team together. So now it's streamlining that whole process to ensure that we are training our new personnel in the most effective manner.
effective. I'm also wondering about the skill set, beyond the trades, beyond the capacity to be a part of the new Canadian Forces. There's also an updated defense policy, and that very much has a focus on the Arctic. How does training have to change? Because quite frankly, in terms of how we have trained Canadian Forces, there hasn't really been much of an Arctic focus.
We've always trained for winter warfare. We've always trained with our equipment. We have always collaborated with our rangers in our northern areas, conducting search and rescue. We have regular exercises, Operation Nanook, that is conducted in 4 phases throughout the year, and it is focused on the north. And then preparing reserve units as well as Arctic companies. So we
need to intensify that, though, because if the focus is going to change on the Arctic, arguably what you have done needs to be even far more in depth.
So what needs to happen in the Arctic is a permanent presence. So it's airstrips, it's ports, it's support hubs. It's building communities to be able to detect and as well deter some of the threats that we might see happening in the Arctic. So it's not just about what we are doing now, but it's also building the infrastructure in the north to ensure that we can actually operate the new systems. So it's about covering the approaches to the north with various technologies, whether it's ground-based or it's satellites, or so all these systems are going to be coming on board. But again, the training as it is when we're talking about land-based, we're already making lots of progress in that way. But the rest will need to come in the next few years.
Mm-hmm. So of course we'll watch in the next 3 years. We're also at a point where we are looking at a new administration going into the United States, an administration that is far more vocal of its criticism of Canada's defense spending, investments, commitments. I'm wondering what you've heard about that here at the Halifax Forum.
So the relationship military to military with our colleagues in the United States is extremely stable. So this is what my U.S. colleagues are telling us. We've maintained that relationships for many years, whether it's in NORAD or it's with NATO or in the Indo-Pacific. So the military-to-military relationships are very strong and then will continue because, again, we share the same continent and then we share the defense and the approaches to Canada and the United States together. So I'm not worried at all about our relationships going forward.
Okay, so you're confident in the relationship. I do want to get some commentary, though, because here in Halifax, we heard a U.S. Senator, James Risch, comment on women in combat roles.
I think it's delusional for anybody to not agree that women in combat creates certain unique situations that have to be dealt with. I think the jury's still out on how to do that.
I'm wondering what your reaction is to it, because beyond you, there were a number of female officers from different countries in that forum reacting to what was said by the senator. What's your reaction to what we heard?
Well, of course, I reacted the next day to make sure that nobody left the forum with the idea that women are a distraction or some kind of social experiment being part of their military in service to their country. So of course I made an intervention to make sure that at least there was a counter-argument to what was said. So just wanted to make sure that there was a different view that was offered. What is that view? And the view is that women have been serving in the military for many years, and they have fought for their country for hundreds of years. The thing is that it has always been forgotten. Women have been demobilized after conflicts, and their history as fighters and warriors has been set aside and forgotten. So it's not a social experiment. With 39 years of service in the combat arms, I've risked my life in many operations across the world. I can't believe that we're still having this discussion in 2024. That was my reaction. And when we have women who step into harm's way, they deserve to be recognized for their contribution. So that was the argument. And now, like, I control only what my area of influence is, so this is what I'm focusing on. You know, our allies and partners can decide how they want to manage this space, but at least I felt it was my responsibility to make the argument.
General, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.